Hello, I'm Dan White, and I'll be produce this show. Alexander Watson. Then, as the story goes, in March 100 years.
One room to another on the PBX. And I was 12 years old when we started selling residential phones, trim lines, individual handsets. This was a big deal when having a touch-tone phone or a modular phone or a trim line was still pretty cool.
Bill enjoyed taking things apart and learning how they worked. He took many, many different telephones apart and some other technology as well.
I think there was a photocopier that got pretty well disassembled. That's the only other thing that comes to mind right now. I think the television was at least taken apart and examined, radios.
It's a giant step to go into competition in earnest against the behemoth AT&T.
It's an evolutionary process, and I think that part of it is maybe as we're growing up, we have certain experiences that help prepare us. I was fortunate in that both my grandfather and father were involved with various business activities and were very generous, both of them, with their time and with their advice. Every time a new circumstance came up that was potentially expensive enough that it was frightening, and that threshold went up over time, it was always phoned at his office in South City and say, hey, this came up and here's the circumstances and I'm just not sure what to do. Say, okay, take dictation, I'm going to give you a letter. And then he'd give me a letter that I'd write and then personalize. And it's interesting now because it's interesting to go back and trace some of those skills and say, here's where they were passed on. One of my great frustrations as we achieve some degree of success over the decades is that there was no one to mentor to pay any of that stuff forward. And that's worked out in about the last year and a half that's changed. But there was a great frustration that there's all these guys, some of whom have now passed on, that really helped me, and there's no one to kind of pay that back to.
So Wild started the business from scratch with the help of his father, a South San Francisco businessman, and of course the semi-partner, Dave Martin. Now, as he looks back over the past 30-plus years of operating this business, we asked if he anticipated that his children would follow behind him.
Now, that's an interesting question because the answer today would be different than the answer 6 months ago, which would be different than the answer 2 years ago. So if you go back a ways, when the business was really growing and developing and we experienced significant challenges, I think I wish they wouldn't. And I think they saw how tired I was when I came home, and I think they really wished they wouldn't either. But since we have made a lot of progress and we have really engaged ourselves to prepare for the future, a couple different things have happened. First of all, obviously they can see the interest that I have in what's happening, and I've tried to involve them in different things. And without any encouragement or whatsoever, my oldest son changed his major at the university to IT with an emphasis in networking and is all excited about how he's doing in his router labs and things. Although I think one of my daughters is probably the most business savvy of the group. But so I will neither encourage or discourage them, but I guess as opportunities come up, we'll explore them. I don't want to try to set what their interests are.
Working after school and on weekends, Bill and Dave sold and installed telephone sets After 3 years of that, at the age of 15, with Martin 5 years his senior, they began actually installing real telephone systems.
91 Industrial Road in San Carlos, and that was a company that we sold a key system to, and put in some 6-button phones and 25-pair cable, and didn't lose any money. We're very, very happy about that. And that we really look as the beginning of Creative Interconnect, as the entity that served commercial customers. And when you can be in regular contact with customers, you can be in their business, you can see what their concerns are, you can see what their challenges are in serving their customers or the public. It gives way to ideas, because technology without application is very limited to no value. So, we look at the technology we were using then, and, getting people from a rotary dial 6-button phone that operated on a 25-pair cable to a touch-tone 6-button phone that worked on the same 25-pair cable, man, that was hot stuff. And if it had a modular handset, wow, watch out. But, then different things started happening, like the call announcers on the intercom, where you had audio on the intercom rather than just a buzzer and a two-way response. Those things began, and then one of the things that we did early in about 1981, which led to our acquisition of our first large client, was the mixing of intercom systems with telephone systems. So we did the first Pack and Safe store up in Colma, put in a 182 key system with the 25 pair phones, but instead of them putting in an intercom system out at the check stands, we put in single line phones that were on the intercom of the key system, hooked that into the overhead PA which we installed, and it went great. And I remember doing that job and just being really grateful for it. I remember Dave Martin and I were out there on a Thanksgiving day in 1981, and neither of us, were both single, didn't have any commitments of things to do, so he was out there helping me pull cable through walker ducks out to the new check stands. And we ended up doing okay on the job. And I figured when I added all my own labor and all the costs, I made about $2 or $3 an hour on the whole job. But it was an achievement to get in and finish the job and whatever else.
Working on Thanksgiving Day in an empty supermarket, it stood to reason the two boys would get hungry. Dave Martin explains.
There was a pallet, I don't, Bill doesn't exactly remember it this way, but there was a pallet of damaged food, open packages, things that obviously they couldn't sell. So Bill and I grab a package of
Circus
animals,
crackers.
so the white and pink circus
16
animal
ounce
crackers, and we walk up to, we're trying to find the...
But you're forgetting part of this.
Okay.
We knew the manager, and I wrote out longhand a note to the manager explaining the circumstances and giving him an inventory and saying that, we wanted to pay when he was back the next day.
That's right, yes.
But we had to eat. So it's 1981, and we've now taken the intercom and married it to the phone system, and the supermarket people love it because it works better, it's more reliable, they deal with a single vendor. In 1987, we figured out that with an electronic key system that operated off 2 or 3 pairs, that worked really well for school districts. So we did that. In the intervening years, we had started offering the electronic key systems and transitioning away from the 25-pair 1A2 key systems. In the intervening years, in 1983, we put in our first PBX system, which was a Mitel, at the Eureka Federal Savings Data Center. Then the other changes that started coming up were more focused on looking at what the peripheral needs are. I had gone to a conference back in Washington, D.C. for our trade association, and a speaker talked about how at that point 30% of the industry's revenue was from equipment, cabling, and maintenance, and 70% was from monthly recurring charges and phone calls. I carried this yellow pad around with me, that I would make successive pencil drawings and erase and change of what this network would look like, and it really was somewhat of an obsession. And this went on for about a year, and finally I said, okay, we're going to have a product offering where we're going to send the customer a bill, and we're going to go back about 5 years and build a local and long distance on one bill, which was after divestiture was not happening then. AT&T was split up. You got your local bill and long distance bill separately. We'll format the bill the way the customer wants. It'll be easy to understand what you're paying for, and you'll deal with a single company for your equipment, for your phone lines, for your long distance, whatever else. So we got started with that entity that we called Teltrex, and it was interesting because we got all kinds of legal advice from very well qualified telecom regulatory attorneys that basically said, what you want to do is completely above board, but it's so out of the box that if the phone company gets wind of it, they will do everything they can to prevent you from launching. However, if you get it into service and it's a fait accompli, then there's nothing they can do about it because you're in the clear and it's a legitimate business opportunity. So we incorporated this entity and used my wife's maiden name, which the attorney advised us if you weren't trying to deceive or be fraudulent, there was nothing wrong with it, so it wasn't associated. I named all my conversations with the phone company, well, we were the equipment vendor for this company, which was true. So we got all the lines and facilities put in place and got the first customers on. And I think we admitted to them that I had some role in this company about 18 months after we had customers on the network when we decided it was nice and safe. Where that led is now we were sending customers a monthly invoice. So people needed voicemail. But so we purchased a centralized voicemail system in the early 90s that could serve all of our customers, the first one of several, and set it up so that they could add voicemail boxes onto that bill. And then there were pagers back when pagers were relevant. So basically we kept following what was going on with the technology and what our customers needed and figuring out a way to offer it to them in a way that worked well, that didn't involve administrative and management hassles to them, and didn't involve capital expenditure. And that really kind of cast the die for where we were headed from there on out, because the next logical evolution of that is, well, don't buy a PBX. Let us provide a PBX and phone to you and service and everything, and we'll just charge you by the handset. Well, we had this hosted product back in the early 90s when no one had even heard the term hosted. And the first one we put in was at the Eureka Federal Savings Building. They're one of their tenants, Remax, their real estate office. We put in our first hosted PBX, or their first of many. Over the past decade and a half, the idea of a customer being able to access technology and services which benefit their organization and help them serve their customers better, and yet doesn't require them to administer or purchase or maintain or upgrade a piece of equipment, that's really been the key to our success. And voice over IP has gone from being a novelty to being a very, very viable technology for all kinds of different applications, and over time is just going to take over the whole voice world. And this concept that some technology guru said 10 years ago, well, the network of the future is going to be this advanced data network, and voice will simply be an application riding on this. And you look at him and you go, man, that guy is the smartest guy around and I don't understand anything, or he is really dumb. You know, and it turned out that he was smart and I couldn't see as far ahead as him. So we made a bold decision, and that is, as an existing company, we were going to do a greenfield network build as if we were a startup. Do we want to stay in the voice business? Is voice going to be relevant? Or are we going to build a data-only network, keep our existing voice customers, and sign no one else up? And there was a lot of soul searching on that and a lot of analysis. And we decided voice was still relevant and there was still a need for voice. And you go back to 10 plus years earlier, the concept of hosted before it was there, and we decided hosted was the way to go. We would put in high availability, high reliability, high-functioning and featured equipment that would allow us to serve a customer from a few phones to hundreds or thousands of phones, where all they needed on their site was some VoIP handsets, some Cat5 wiring, and a router, and to connect back into this Ethernet network. And there was no need for a PBX, there was no need for a voicemail system or a call accounting system out on site, no hard drives out there, just basically nothing to break and nothing that's hard to configure. It's exciting. It's exciting that it works, that it fulfills the promise, and that we'll be delivering Ethernet out to our customers and high performance.
Ethernet is a technology that's used in the offices of most organizations, or almost all, but unfortunately it tends to stop at the border of their buildings and not leave and go out into the internet and networks as a whole. And in 2009 and 2010, we will be doing our part to change that. When we think of utilizing the internet, which is a key part of all of our lives now, people talk about, I've got a 3 megabit, a 5 megabit, a 10 megabit connection, and we tend to think of that as speed, both in the telecom industry and in the business community as a whole. And we feel that nothing could be farther from the truth, that more likely to say that that's really a speed limit, just like 65 miles an hour on the freeway is a speed limit, although many people on the freeway do not realize that 65 miles an hour because of congestion. And the same thing happens out in the internet and private networks. You have a speed limit, but oftentimes you don't come anything close to realizing that due to congestion and other issues. Our new network, which has been built from the ground up as an all-Ethernet network, provides a clear highway ahead for our customers, where 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they get the speed and the throughput that they're paying for. Metro Ethernet is what we call the product and collection of technologies which are used to provide this type of service. What we really like about this is it uses Ethernet outside of your office as well as in your office. So they're a company connecting to a branch office, it isn't Ethernet in their office, some conversion to something else, and then back to Ethernet at the other end. It's an all Ethernet network which is more efficient and it's faster. Higher speeds are available even for locations without fiber. In the Bay Area, and especially here on the peninsula, we estimate that about 3% of the commercial, industrial, and office buildings on the San Francisco Peninsula have access to fiber optic cabling. And so the other 97% have been limited in how much bandwidth they can have, which limits the type of business operations that can take place there. With new Ethernet over copper technology, we're able to reach speeds that were only available on fiber before and deliver them to many of those other 97% of those buildings. Also, with that comes some additional advantages, not only from the speed, but from the quality of the bandwidth. Telecommuting is something that 10 years ago, very few of our customers did. Today, there are few of our customers that don't have someone in their company that's telecommuting part-time or full-time. And there are challenges with that in duplicating the computer and voice infrastructure so that it's transparent to that person and to the customers and people they're interfacing with to not realize that they're off-site. And these collection of technologies make that very, very straightforward to accomplish. The person has the same experience in using their computer and telephone at their desk as they do at a remote location. And as we're looking to take vehicles off the highway and to do things, this is a great thing. Also, teleconferencing, video conferencing, again, you know, we're seeing that in the large corporations. We're not yet seeing that a lot in our customer base, but we think in the coming year or two that there's going to be a big change and a shift there, and businesses are going to start making use of that. By getting onto a Metro Ethernet network now and getting the quality of bandwidth that will allow you to have a video conference that looks more like a television show and isn't more jerky, stiff motion type of thing, you can be prepared for that now and be ready to use use it. I think having this conversation again in a couple of years, we'll see a much, much greater adoption rate in the small and medium business and organizations. Also, this type of solution is very scalable. It can start with a certain amount of bandwidth and increase greatly, or it can increase to encompass many, many locations, all without starting over. Voice over IP was a novelty a number of years ago, voice over internet protocol, voice communications, but we feel that it's finally arrived, and we have been working for 2 years diligently on our voice over IP offering. And we had some pretty difficult criteria to meet, and that was we wanted to provide the features that people associate with voice over IP that help telecommuting, branch offices, provide additional efficiency. However, it had to have the reliability of the traditional plain old telephone set on your desk, and that has proved to be the challenge, but with our all Ethernet network, we have been able to achieve that and are now ready to offer that. Our hosted solution replaces the PBX and other telephone system that traditionally would be in an office or other organization. You have some voice over IP handsets, a router, a Metro Ethernet connection to the building, and you're done. All of the intelligence is in the network and does not require equipment on site. This allows a much higher degree of reliability and also flexibility. Another thing that customers told us was very important to them is to have control of their moves and changes. The VoIP platform allows a customer to pick up a telephone in an office or cubicle and move it any place else where they have an outlet at their location without having to have technician involvement. It can be done by any person in the organization. Other changes that are more involved, we have a secure web page where administrator can log in and make those changes all on their own. As a part of staying current, when you have the intelligence of the system centralized, you're able to manage it in a different way. You can imagine the number of telephone systems out there right now in the Bay Area that have 10 to 15-year-old operating systems on them that have not been upgraded, and you think about if your desktop PC was running Windows 95, we have the telecom equivalent of that. With this program, it's not necessary to have that happen anymore because we upgrade the centralized equipment with a major software release twice a year. So features remain current and equipment does not become obsolete. Features are software-driven rather than hardware-driven. So also, equipment is not obsoleted and sent to e-waste or landfills. These upgrades take place via software, and it's not necessary to keep churning equipment over and over again. Another offering that we have is a trunking solution. Some customers may, for whatever reason, not be ready to embrace the voice over IP handsets on their desk. This trunking solution is compatible with every telephone system that's out in use in the marketplace, and while it doesn't convey all the advantages of the full hosted solution, a significant portion of those are available. Customer can get the benefit of those immediately, and then when they're ready to transition to the hosted solution, it's a very smooth migration. So some of the key benefits to recap are high reliability. Most of this equipment that's centralized, or virtually all of it, is redundant, so that even during a software upgrade, it's not taken offline. It's feature-rich. It has new features which are efficient and help organizations to get more done, which we think is very important today. It's environmentally friendly, as we spoke about. One other thing is that this newer generation of equipment we're employing uses a fraction of the electricity of previous generations of telecom equipment. So when you start looking at the lesser electricity usage, people being able to telecommute more often, having video conferencing for meetings rather than travel, if a company is concerned about their overall CO2 emissions, this is a approach to help them do that. Also, one of the features we like, especially in today's economy, is that this is a service and there's no capital investment required by the customer. So they can obtain the benefits of these services and the efficiencies and the cost savings without having to purchase a bunch of equipment to accomplish that, again, because of the way the network is centralized. And another thing customers told us loud and clear is that they wanted a predictable cost. They wanted to know how much their monthly invoice was going to be in advance without surprises, and we have designed it to deliver that also. On November 10, 1951, the mayor of Englewood, New Jersey, phoned the mayor of Alameda, California, and made the first long-distance call that was direct dialed. And today, on November 10, 2009, on the anniversary of that event, former Mayor Tom Davids of San Carlos is going to call 1 + 10 digits to the mayor of Alameda, Beverly Johnson. This will be over our new Ethernet network, and we will make history as they officially inaugurate this new network.
The right number, Tom. So far, we're doing well.
Hello, this is Mayor Johnson in Alameda.
Hello, Mayor Johnson. This is Mayor Tom Davids in San Carlos, California. How are you?
Well, good evening, Mayor. How are you?
We're doing great. I have two other mayors with me, Mayor Mike King and Mayor Don Eaton. So we're here in force launching this new program, and we're interested in knowing how we're coming through.
You're coming through great.
That's good.
Very
Then
clear.
we can go ahead and continue this process, can we?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's all we need to know. Thank you. No, don't go away. Well, it's an exciting time here. I think the product, we've heard all about it. Very few of us understand it, but we're with Bill, and as long as he can make it work, it's going to work here as well as over in Alameda.
No, you sound very, very clear.
Good,
It's
good.
A very good reception.
I would like to take this opportunity, though, to wish the good folks of Alameda our best wishes. My wife and I lived there from 59 to 79.
Oh my gosh, really?
And we were back there just a couple of weeks ago watching our son play lacrosse at that new indoor soccer field on the...
Oh, out at the base?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a fantastic operation.
Oh yeah, it's great out there. It's funny, we were just talking about how we wondered how Alameda ended up being the recipient of that call back, what was it, 1951. But it's kind of funny because Alameda was also the end of the Intercontinental Railroad, or I mean, Alameda has several historic points like that.
You know that we are the city of good living.
You are the city.
Even though Alameda is on the map, we are the city of good living.
That's right. We'll be on the map for the phone call, but you can be the city of good living.
Yeah, that's very good. Well, we've got about 300 people in this auditorium who are anxious to make that visit to Alameda, so get ready for them.
All right. Okay.
Very good. Well,
Okay. Well, thank you, Mayor.
well, thank you, Mayor, and good luck in the future. We'll be in touch.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Telephone, won't you ring? Now it's way past 11. Telephone, won't you ring?
Hey baby, I'm your telephone and you just show me where you want it and I'll put it where I can. I can put it in the bedroom, I can put it in the hall.
And so it goes. 130 years of telephone history, and Bill Wild has been a part of 30 of those years. Changes in telephony were somewhat evolutionary for the majority of that time, until fairly recently when they have become revolutionary. With the advent of wireless technology and now internet telephony, the world continues to demand more and better communications technology, and companies like Creative Interconnect Communications continue to meet and exceed the demand. A tribute indeed to the forward thinking of that 12-year-old entrepreneur in 1975. We can only speculate what will come next, but it's a pretty certain fact that if Alexander Graham Bell were here today and placed his infamous call to Watson, he would likely get voicemail. For CIC Communications, I'm Dan White.